Hello, today we are going to start statistics. Statistics is the mathematics of organizing and analyzing data. Data is a bunch of information. Each piece of data is called a datum, but don't worry about that, no one uses that word ever. A set of data is just called a set of data. Alright, organizing and analyzing data. What first thing we're going to do with this data is we're going to organize it by making a dot plot. Okay, let's do an example. Here is a set of grades for a quiz that I gave several years ago. You do not know these people. I don't even remember what year it was. I don't remember what class it was. This is actual grades from a quiz. All these grades are data, information about the students. I want to look at these grades and I want to be able to make some conclusions about it. For example, did these students do well on the quiz? Did they do poorly? Do I need to reteach the subject? What's the story? Looking at this data the way it is now, I can't find out any of that information. I can't look at this and know, just looking at it, whether these students did well or did poorly. For me to be able to do that sort of thing, I have to organize the data. And the way that I'm choosing to organize it is in a dot plot. So let's get to it. First thing you need to do is identify the biggest number, the highest value, and the lowest value. The highest value is called the maximum, and the lowest value is called the minimum. Look through these numbers. Which one has the highest value? 95, right there. So I'll circle it 95. Actually, I think I'll change the color just so it doesn't get confusing to me. Okay, change the color, I'll circle it, 95. Notice how there are several 95s. I'm going to ignore that right now. All I know is the highest value here is 95. Now I'll look through again, I'll find the lowest value. The lowest value is right next to that 95, it's 54. 54, so I found the highest value, the maximum, and the lowest value, the minimum. I'm going to ignore all the other numbers for right now. But it's time to make the dot plot. First step, make sure you have plenty of space above your number line and draw a number line at the bottom of the space. Don't like that arrow at the end. I'm going to try to redo that. Okay, much better. Okay, second step, I have to put tick marks and I have to number this number line. And I have to decide what am I going to number it by. Remember, I'm looking to go from 54 to 95. I could go by ones, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, etc. But that seems like an awful lot of tick marks and an awful lot of numbers, and it's more information than I really need. So instead, I could go by 20s. I could say 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. That seems like not enough information. That seems like they're too far apart and I'm going to have a bunch of dots without any information about what their actual values are. I could go by tens, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, but a lot of these are 95s and 85s something in 5s, not really at 10, so it doesn't make sense for me to go by 10s. I think the best one would be to go by 5s. Okay, so I'm going to go by 5s. Start off on the left. Now if I'm going by 5s, 54 is not a multiple of 5. So that tick mark is not going to be labeled 54, it's going to be labeled 50. Because 50 is a multiple of 10, of 5 rather. Now at the top, 95 is a multiple of 5, but I don't want to put 95 there. I want to put 100. See how 50 is past 54 on the low side? I really want the number line to be a little bit longer than the data. I want it to go a little bit past the data. So a little bit past 95, going by 5s, would be 100. So 50 at the bottom, 100 at the top. Done. Now I know I'm going to go by 5s. Again, I'm ignoring what all of the other numbers say. I'm just looking at the minimum and maximum. I know I need to go from 50 to 100 because those are a little bit outside the minimum and maximum. I'm going to have to go 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95. That's 9 tick marks that I need to put in the middle here. I know how to do 9. I'm going to put 1 in the middle and then 4 on each side. I'm trying to make them as evenly spaced as I can. My little trick of doing 1 in the middle and 4 on each side is a way for me to try to make them evenly spaced. And there's 9 new tick marks. Let's number them. 50 already, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75. If you make a mistake, just erase and go back and fix it. 80, 85, 90, 95. That looks good. I have tick marks all the way along. They're numbered quite nicely. Looks good to me. Now, finally, we're going to get to actually making dots. All right, let me change colors. I'm going to look at each of these points and I'm going to put a dot for each of them. The first number is 75. Cross it off because I'm doing it. Now I don't put it on the number line, I put it above the number line and I just draw a little dot right there above the 75. That takes care of 75. 55. 55 is down here. One thing I want to point out, notice how these 2 points are approximately horizontal to each other. They're at the same level. That's important. It makes it much easier to read your dot plot if you make sure that your dots all line up nicely. 94. Now 94 is not 95, so I don't want to put it above the 95. I want to put a little bit to the left of 95. There's about where 94 would go. 65. Notice how I'm just going from left to right. I'm not trying to figure out where the next one would be. I'm not seeing where are all my 50s, where are all my 55s. I'm just going from left to right, taking these one at a time. 75. Okay, we already have a dot at 75. We need to put a second dot at 75. You put it above it. Okay, so there's 2 dots at 75 because there were 2 75s before. 74, just a little bit to the left of 75. Remember, this doesn't go up here because it's not a second dot. It's a first dot for 74. 95. There's our first dot for 95. 85. 85 again. Second dot for 85. Now notice, the second dots also are at the same level to each other. Another 85. Oops, I had forgotten to erase that I already done that point, right? So I'll just erase it. Go back here. 55. 85. There's my third 85. 95. Second 95. 95. Even though it's circled, it is still a data point. 54. A little bit to the left of the 55. Make that a little bit bigger. 75. 75 again. 75 again. And 85. And that's all my dots plotted on the dot plot. That's what a dot plot looks like. I'm going to clean up this dot a little bit, only because it's a little messy. That's much better. There I go. Now I've organized my data. Now I can look at this data organized and see how the students did. Well, did they do well? Did they do poorly? Are most of the dots to the right, where the good grades are, or to the left, where the poor grades are? If you notice, most of the dots are over here, where the good lines are. So, these students in general did okay. I'm only saying okay, not great, because I did have some students do poorly. Here they are down here. But I had most of my students do better on the right side. So that's pretty good. I don't think that I would have to redo this entire lesson again. It wasn't like everybody did poorly. I do have a number of 75s here, so I think that I'll make sure that if I got these grades today, I would make sure that I would go back and I would review some of the material. If there was like one question that everybody got wrong or a lot of people got wrong, I would go through that question again. And these people down here, I would make sure to give them specific feedback, maybe call them in for an extra help session. But you see how nice it is to have data organized, and this is one way to do it in a dot plot.